Now we're going to take a look at the so-called religious freedom laws that are generating so much controversy. And if anybody thought this is just about Indiana, you need to pay closer attention. Arkansas now, lawmakers in that state just passed one of their own bills, a piece of legislation to do this last night. But the governor, Asa Hutchinson, says he will not sign it unless they make substantive changes. A similar drama, as we know, playing out in Indiana, where Governor Mike Pence is taking heat for his 180-degree turn. I mean, talk about a flip-flop. Remember Sunday when he was pressed on this issue? Take a listen to his conversation with George Stephanopoulos from ABC's This Week.
Perhaps, tolerance is a two-way street.
So when you say tolerance is a two-way street, does that mean that Christians who want to refuse service, or people of any other faith who want to refuse service to gays and lesbians, that it's now legal in the state of Indiana? That's a simple yes or no question.
George, the question here is if there is a government action or a law that an individual believes impinges on their religious liberty, they have the opportunity to go to court, just as the Religious Freedom Restoration Act that Bill Clinton's side allowed them, go to court, and the court would evaluate the circumstance under the standards articulated in this act. That's all it is.
Now, listen to that and then pay attention to what he said yesterday, the same Governor Pence, when he called for lawmakers to make changes before Saturday, and that just happens to be when the Final Four tips off in Indianapolis. Take a listen.
I think it would be helpful, and I'd like to see on my desk before the end of this week legislation that is added to the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in Indiana that makes it clear that this law does not give businesses a right to deny services to anyone.
Now, this is a drama that could be playing out in 19 other states that already have their own religious freedom laws on the books here. Take a look at those shaded areas where this is the same conversation, but now coming to light because of the intersection of the Final Four, Indiana, and a governor who can't seem to get his stories figured out. Now, Doug, there's the ethical and there's the moral debate to this. And it's interesting. Like, as a fly on the wall, I'm hearing these conversations at water coolers, locker rooms, wherever else, where people are a little conflicted, and they ask the same basic question. How is it that you can't, the laws, these 19 laws are intended not to discriminate against people's religious freedom, but by definition, they're permitting them to be discriminatory against somebody else because of their sexual preference?
Well, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's a protected class, I think, at this point. You're talking about a group of people that have been traditionally, over a period of time, they've been treated differently. And you know, when I think this gentleman, he reached a political reality and also a legal reality when he did a 180, because the Commerce Clause has been read in such a way that this would never hold up. I don't think anybody would think it would.
Would it though? Didn't Hobby Lobby in many ways open the Pandora's box of this conversation, which said, hey, if an employer doesn't like, doesn't believe or support homosexuality or birth control, whatever the case may be, in that particular case, they didn't have to provide birth control, you know, or morning after pill. I'm sorry if I'm confusing. But the point is, they didn't believe that they wanted that covered under their health care policy, and the Supreme Court agreed with them.
Well, one, I think they were looking at that as looking at Hobby Lobby as a citizen. They were looking at their First Amendment rights. But we're talking about discriminating against a class of people. It's a completely different analysis, which I don't think it would hold up. They weren't saying it was their right to express themselves as a individual. They were saying this law is saying something completely different.
Is there a clear, bright line? Because I was surprised, and I do this for a living, that this was in 19 states. So I thought, oh, Indiana, what the heck are they thinking? Then Arkansas comes in behind it. Then you look at where it is. Between both the intersection of faith and law, and then also, Susan, the intersection between when it's okay to legally discriminate against, whether it be a gender, a race, a sexuality, whatever the case may be. This can't just be restricted to gays here. Do people have more liberties to discriminate than many of us imagine?
Well, I think there is a bigger issue here, and that is that these laws, Indiana and Arkansas, are the demon baby of Hobby Lobby, which you just brought up. In Hobby Lobby, the Supreme Court says that a closely held corporation can assert its rights to religious freedom and ask to be exempted from some particular law. A closely held corporation really is identified with an individual. A mom and pop store is really mom and pop. These laws allow corporations, Walmarts and Kmarts and IBM, to assert religious freedom rights. I don't even know what that means. What rights to religious freedom does a huge corporation have? Is it the rights of the shareholders, the rights of the employees? But this really is a law that empowers corporate America in a very scary way.
You came from, in fact, you ran the Bias Crimes Department, so you dealt with equity or lack thereof. Is it the way that this read in Indiana? And guys put up signs as soon as some of these people celebrated the idea of this, and they said, "I'm not serving gays in here." If some faith decided that interfaith or interracial marriage was wrong, black and white couple come up to the door, they could say no to. This has so many applications. And the gutlessness in Indiana is they're responding to public pressure. They're not responding because all of a sudden there's a change of heart. They're seeing corporations threaten to pull business. They're seeing conferences already saying they're going to move out. They're seeing Apple saying that they're going to take talent from there and move somewhere else. But Mayo, I mean, the applications of this, I think people are just getting their arms around just how far this could spread. It's not just gays.
Well, the law has a tremendous chilling effect on everybody, first of all, because anyone can be potentially a target of these types of laws. The other thing is that it's really not about religious freedom. It's about freedom for certain religions. But if you had someone who, say, let's say, practiced Santeria and did sacrifices, they wouldn't honor that. They wouldn't recognize that. They wouldn't recognize smaller religions. If you had someone who was a Muslim and said that they practice Sharia law and you can't come in, they're not going to serve Jewish people or they're not going to serve Christians, it would be a big difference. So when you're in the majority, we're still dealing with majority rule, essentially. And from time to time, communities change. You can be in a community that once was Catholic that becomes Muslim.
Just go to Dearborn, Michigan, right?
Dearborn, Michigan, absolutely. And if you all of a sudden say every company there has the ability to decide who they're going to serve, and they decide they're not going to serve Jewish people or they're not going to serve gay people or Christians, there may be nowhere in that town you can get served. So imagine if you go to Rockland County where they're having the issues they have right now with Curious Joel and you start to apply those types of rules. Well, what really happens there? First of all, it's bad, and that's why the Commerce Clause even came into all of these discussions, because it's a chilling effect and it crushes commerce.
What if they said, you know, to Susan, we're not going to serve you if you don't have dress that covers up to your ankles, which there's debates. And the whole is now this is in the public sphere,
Absolutely.
you know, and how different faiths look at different people. And in 2015, we're having this conversation. That's the most stunning thing to me, Jim.
That's what I was going to interject.
We don't travel enough around the country. I know you go to cases all over the place here. People say, oh, you get out of the Northeast or whatever else, you'd be shocked at what you'll see.
The very fact that we have people in 19 states celebrating, or at least in one state celebrating, the fact that there is such support for this type of discrimination in this country, while I'm sitting and listening to pundits tell me, oh, we're past discrimination, it's shameful. And it's shameful and it's embarrassing to have a guy hanging up a sign and celebrating that he can discriminate against gays, discriminate against people of color. The fact that this is so prevalent in this country in 2015, that's the issue to me. I think Doug is right. It's not going to pass constitutional muster, and that's why he did a 180. But
no, he did a 180 because he was afraid to lose business.
Well, and certainly that as well.
Yeah, Rich, also, you know, we're talking about them serving people. We're talking about those laws. These people are allowed to say whatever they want, by the way. They can hang up signs. They can do it. They can do, this is America. They can make, you know, as big of fools as they want of themselves, quite frankly. But they're allowed to say it, but they're just not allowed to, you know, deny services, and that's important.
All right, now we want you to be part of our conversation at home as well. Go to Facebook and Twitter. And it's our question of the day. Should religious freedom permit discrimination in any instances? Sound off. It's not just yes or no. Give your rationale. All right, when we come back, we're going to move closer to home. This Connecticut teenager you see in front of you is accused of killing a fellow high school student on prom day. And he's entering a not guilty plea by reason of insanity. We'll explore the threshold of proving whether someone is legally insane and how we determine that. Stay with us.